Welcome again to Joe Stunner Boxing. I hope you're doing well. There was a very interesting article on Channel 4 News under the title Racism in Boxing. Now, you could be forgiven for thinking that because there are an awful lot of ethnic minorities in boxing, especially black people, West Indian origins, and African origins, you could be forgiven for thinking that, it's not like the old days. I mean, I go back to, well, the event that always springs to mind in my head is Errol Christie against Mark Taylor. You had a lot of National Front, British movement involvement in the fans. You know, there was definitely a racial vibe to it. It was horrible, absolutely horrible. And yeah, I mean, there was a lot of racism, even back in the mid-80s. I mean, say even back. I mean, that's now 30, well, nearly 40 years ago, 38 years ago. So to some people, that seems like the dark ages. But if you're the age I am, and I'm in my mid-50s, you will have seen an improvement, definitely an improvement. There weren't even any Asian fighters in Britain that I can recall, sort of probably before 20 years ago. I mean, Amir Khan was actually a bit of a groundbreaker. But anyway, this article on Channel 4 News talks about perceived racism in boxing. Now, two referees are interviewed in this article. One of them is Ian John Lewis, who scored his infamous card on the Jack Catterall Josh Taylor fight, 114-111 to Taylor. In my opinion, an absolutely indecipherable card, ridiculous numbers. I have no idea what he was watching. And as a result, he was downgraded by the board from an A-star referee to a Class A referee, which means he couldn't referee, I think, world title fights, possibly British title fights as well. I'm doing this off memory, but there was a white judge who scored it for Josh Taylor also, that fight. He had it closer. I think it was 113, 112, I think. I can't remember which judge it was. But he wasn't pulled in, and he wasn't disciplined, and he wasn't downgraded. And Ian John Lewis, who became Britain's first black referee in, I think it was 2000, he threw his, he's left the board. He's now, I don't know, is it with the Irish Union, the Irish Boxing Union, or he's with another organisation. He carries on refereeing, but he wants nothing to do with the board. And in fact, he's taken them to a tribunal. He is taken to a tribunal where he claims, and he openly says, I think it's racist. And we'll see how that tribunal goes, because that'll be very interesting. Another referee, black referee, Jeff Hinds, he's had issues with the board as well. He's an older gentleman. I think his background is he's from Trinidad, or his family from Trinidad, and he claims that in the not so old days, racial epithets and slurs and so on were used against him by board members, and that the implication was he was passed over for promotion. He's been in trouble with the board. He's been disciplined by the board. He claims that for unprofessionalism. He claims that there was nothing unprofessional about his conduct, and that they actually made they gave the impression publicly by printing statements on their website that he had been disciplined, and he regards this as a slur, and he has no interest in the board either now. But he does feel that they've acted in a racist manner. Now, there's also a boxer. A female boxer who claims that the board is racist and out of touch. Her name is Ruxana Begum, and she is a female fighter, 39 years of age. She currently has a 3 wins, 2 defeats, 1 draw record. But she gave up her license when she was actually suspended because of her first 3 fights were 2 defeats and a draw. Since then, she's won 3 fights abroad against very low opposition. But the board claims that that suspending her license was nothing to do with her race. she lost, but she drew her first fight against a girl who had a 1-3 record. She lost on points to a 1-11-2 opponent. Actually, I think no, that was the same opponent, if memory serves. And also, she lost to a girl who had no wins and 1 defeat. Both those defeats were on points. Now, that's not good form, obviously, and the board are claiming, it has nothing to do with the fact she's a Muslim, nothing to do with her ethnicity. It's got everything to do with her performance. And we didn't take a license off her. We merely suspended it because, for safety reasons. Now, that seems like a reasonable, perfectly plausible argument. But Miss Begum isn't having this. She says that there was an occasion when she fought at the York Hall. She lost on points. This was one of her defeats. And she said that she entered the ring wearing black tights because, being a Muslim, modesty is encouraged within that faith. And also her family, her father was in the audience, and she deemed it appropriate that she should dress in that manner. She was actually spoken to while she was standing in her corner by a board official who said, "You can't wear those tights." And she said, "Well, I've worn them before in fights, why not?" And he said, "Well, it's against regulations, but I'll let you off this time." And that, being spoken to, just as she's about to fight, wasn't a good look, affected her, and she claims that it was basically, it's discriminatory against a person of colour and their faith. That's what she claims. Now, since then, like I say, she's won 3 fights abroad under a different licence because she gave her licence back. But she was saying that the board need to look at their policies, their equality and diversity policy, and really kind of get into the 21st century. That was her argument. It's her. I'm paraphrasing, but that's her argument. I'm not giving you my opinion. I think it's a debate worth having, certainly, especially when you consider that the board, when spoken to by Channel 4, said that there's a lot of work to do, and that they are reviewing their equality and diversity practices. Their policies are vague at best and open to interpretation. And anything that is of that nature, you could argue, that sort of fudges the issue. So it's an interesting article. What I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the link to this Channel 4 article, Racism in Boxing, UK Governing Body Accused is the title of it. Have a look at it and tell me what you think. And yeah, I'm eager to hear your opinions. What do you think? Racism in boxing, it is worth mentioning that although I think 800 plus participants out of about 1,700 are, people from ethnic minorities, mixed race people, black people, Asians and so on, there's only one person on the board of executives, the British Boxing Board of Control Executives, who isn't white. So you could argue, well, is that a fair representation? But you leave your comments below. I want to hear your comments. I want to hear your opinions. Let me know what you think. Do you think it's a big issue? Do you think the board has been, do you think the board needs updating, dragging into the modern world? I don't know. You tell me. So I'm looking forward to reading your comments. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Hit the like button. That always helps us, and spread the word about Joe Stunner Boxing. Really appreciate your time, and I will have a read of your comments and answer. Thanks very much. Bye for now.